My name is Brunet-Jailly. I'm a professor and Jean Monnet Chair at the University of Victoria, British Columbia in Canada. I've studied the European Union and integration process since the mid-1990s. I started having an interest in Europe earlier than that, obviously, because it's something that happened. I was not even born when it started, but it's been part of my life the whole time. And as I was a civil servant working for the French government, we discovered, I was in the Ministry of Industry in the mid-80s, early 80s and mid-80s. I discovered that there were very large European grants that we could apply to that was very, very useful for the kind of things that I was doing at the time, economic development policies, small business and incentive policies, and so on and so forth. And that's where my interest comes from. My interest in Europe is. The question for me is how Europe and a country like France, where I was born, interact in creating a new future or a different future and making Europe a peaceful place, because the European construction is premised on this idea that Europe had been at war for almost a century and a half. And when you look at that, and when you look at your own personal history, like my own personal history, my family history is directly impacted, has directly been impacted by those wars. Many of my elders, many of my grandparents and great-grandparents have died in wars or in concentration camps. And so that's a really important part of our history. Building the European Union from that perspective then becomes, something that is fascinating. Now, because of my past in government, I was really interested in economic development issues. And Europe, in the 80s, when I worked in government, developed very large grants specifically for border regions. Hence my interest in borders and in regions and in urban spaces, urban regions, cities, large metropolitan cities, and so on and so forth. So I started thinking that if I did a PhD, I'd like to study large, cross-border urban regions. And this is what I've been studying now for over 30 years. Cities like the city of Lille in Nord-Pas-de-Calais, but that spreads over all the way into Belgium, and other cities like Enschede and Groningen in Germany on the Dutch-German border, and other places, obviously Catalonia and the Basque Country and Kent relations with Nord-Pas-de-Calais, and so on and so forth. And then, because I moved to Canada to work and to teach, I always thought that it would be really interesting to study comparatively and to bring that knowledge of the European integration process and of these different policies into my research. So progressively, instinctively, I've always done comparative research. I've always been interested in comparing cities, comparing border regions, and their complexity. And it just snowballed, basically. The whole research snowballed into understanding what bordering does, understanding the difficulties for border urban regions.